Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. However, wherever, whenever you're listening, this is the Root for Wisconsin Show, episode 139, coming at you from the Riverwood Gallery Studio in De Pere, Wisconsin. I'm host-producer Eric Fisher, the Big E. Joining us this week, we've got Sean Klosterman, member of the Highway 22 crew. Sean, how you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Fantastic. And in our big announcement, our newest full-time member of the Root for Wisconsin programming. We're the podcast network now because we have a second show, technically. Everybody, you've seen him before. You've heard him before. It's Dylan Tritt. Dylan, welcome back to the show. It's been a few weeks. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. How are you guys?
Fantastic. Glad to have you here. Glad to officially announce you as part of the team. And I can say Sean, Justin, Ramsey probably happy too because it means a little less impact on their wallets. So even better.
Mm-hmm.
So glad to have you officially part of the team. It's going to be a great run here for at least the next year. So you're now contractually obligated for the next year.
Yeah.
And Sean can tell you that's
signing bonus though, huh?
Well, it is a little late in the year for that.
Yeah, I know. Maybe next year.
Maybe.
Well, you get the signing bonus at the wedding.
Ah, yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
This is news to me. Someone's got to inform me of this, but I'll have to relook at these contracts that we don't have. Anyway, so a little bit of a different format this week. We are going to start off with what we always do here, and that is talking about our friends over at Rage and Pro Wrestling, RPW. Next event is February 10th at the Watering Hole in Green Bay. And tickets are available for that at Look Sharp in the Fox River Mall, also on the RPW website, as well as at the venue, the Watering Hole itself. So be sure to get your tickets for that. They are going quickly. Potential final show at the Watering Hole for quite some time, so be sure to get there. And it is one of the bigger shows that they do, so you're not going to want to miss it. Also, our friends over at Raise Energy at repsports.com, code ROOT4, ROOT, number 4, gets you 15% off of any order from Raise Energy and repsports.com. With that in mind, this is where we're going to get a little different. Usually, this is where we would do our what we had rooted for, as well as our Tyler Hero Noogie of the Week segment. But as we do every year at the quote-unquote last episode of the year for the season, because it's our close to our anniversary, we're doing our award show. So we basically have our best of from the last year, and that is going to take place to this. Before we do that, though, I do want a quick tease. We are going to do a quick Wisconsin web story of the week, and that just talking about some of the favorite Christmas entertainment for this time of year. And in a recent study and survey, 2 different groups announced the top Christmas song and Christmas movie of each state. And for Wisconsin, I'm going to let you guys take a guess at what you think it is.
Christmas Vacation? I don't know.
For the song?
Oh, for the movie.
Oh, okay. What do you got for the song?
Frosty.
Dylan?
Yeah, I got nothing. Old reliable, Mariah Carey.
Mariah Carey.
So Mariah Carey, I will say, as I'm trying to pull up the Wisconsin results here,
Yeah, I don't
Mariah Carey is known to make $2.5 million in royalties from that every year.
Yeah,
It's the number one song in 10 states. But is it number 1 in Wisconsin? So we're about to find out. So bear with me. The number 1 song in the state of Wisconsin is A Holly Jolly Christmas. So
never would have guessed that.
No.
You had it going. And then for movies, Dylan or Sean, you said Christmas Vacation.
Yeah.
Dylan, did you want to venture a guess on this?
Die Hard.
That's not even a Christmas movie.
Yes, it is.
Die Hard actually is second in the state of Wisconsin, which is bullshit. I'll be the first to say it's bullshit. But number 1 in the state of Wisconsin is Home Alone. So take that for what you will. Top 5: Home Alone, Die Hard, Christmas Vacation, A Christmas Story, and It's a Wonderful Life. One of the old staples. So,
No, it's a terrible movie.
which one?
Wonderful Life.
Oh, that's a terrible take. That might be the worst take we've ever had on this show.
No, you've had some pretty bad ones.
It's a classic. You cannot have Christmas without It's a Wonderful Life.
Horrible movie.
All right. Anyway, Sean, I'm going to go right past that because I can. So we get into...
It's supposed to be a happy show. No arguing right now.
So we get into our award show, and basically how this is going to work, we're all going to mention a show or a nominee for the category. We're going to debate it very quickly, and if we can't come to a consensus, we maybe have a co-winner. Otherwise, if we come to a consensus, we'll go with that. So we have 4 awards to give out this year, and we're going to work our way up from kind of the lower ones to the highest one, kind of like the Oscars and the Tonys and the Academy, all of them. So we're going to start with our newcomer of the year. Now, for this category, it can be a rookie. It can be someone who was recently acquired by one of the teams or signed by a team. However you want to go with this, you can go with it. So, newcomer of the year, I'm going to lead off with who looks the least prepared. Looks like Sean.
I'm going to go William Contreras. That's going to be my newcomer of the year for the Milwaukee Brewers. Just because the guy was able to put together a really great season, and he was really slept on all year, but put together a really solid season for the Brewers.
Took home the Silver Slugger for the catcher position as well in the National League. Got MVP votes. I believe he finished in the top 10 in MVP votes for the National League. I'm going to jump in here because I was, up until about an hour and change ago, I was also leaning William Contreras. That was going to be my nominee. Instead, I am going to go with my nominee. I'm going to give my official vote to William Contreras. So, Dylan, you're going to have to make a hell of a case probably to win.
Okay.
But I am going to say William Contreras was going to be my nominee for the same stuff Sean said until my official nominee, which is going to be head coach of the Green Bay Phoenix men's basketball team, Sundance Bucs. And this is purely on recency bias. I just got them doing the coaches show for UW Green Bay men and women's basketball. And you just listen to the guy and you get super hyped up by him. You believe in everything he says. Every word he says you believe and buy into, and just gives you energy and excitement about this program that I would argue has not been here since the 2016 season where they went to the NCAA tournament. 2016 season. Even when they had Coach Link Darner, where they were going, they were top 4 team in the Horizon League every year. He was getting contract extensions. All of that said, it wasn't the same. And even that, I don't know if you remember this, Dylan, but because we were in college when that tournament team was, mm-hmm. And even the men's team didn't have the same buzz that the women's did. And it is still different. I mean, the women's team just always has that buzz around them. But for the first time, I even noticed this last week after the UIC win, that men's team is getting a lot of love in a lot of different places that I don't think it has gotten in. I'd even probably go back to the Brian Wardle days with Kiefer Sykes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So very excited by that. And then even tonight, I didn't know this, but he had said tonight on the coach's show that his goal, he wrote on a note card when he first got hired, 6 wins by Christmas. Which, should they win, which I'm going to say betting-wise they will be favored, they do have a non-traditional game against MSOE, Milwaukee School of Engineering, on Thursday night. Should they win that game, they will achieve their goal of 6 wins by Christmas. So, hats off to him and the program. That's my newcomer of the year. What do you got for us, Dylan?
I'm going Damian Lillard. I think that's a pretty solid pick. Averaging 26 points, 8 assists. Is he as explosive as he was in Portland? Maybe not. But this is also the first time he's playing with someone on his team that is the same or higher caliber than him. I think he is fulfilling his expectations that the fan base and the staff and the other members of the Bucs had of him. Just the buzz he's created around this team, you haven't seen it since the finals the 2021 championship. Obviously, that's recent, but just a new buzz this year with him, and I think he's invigorated Milwaukee Bucks basketball.
All right, so we have our 3 nominees. With the nominees, I'm going to ask Sean, what is your pick? Are you going to stay with your pick, or are you going to go with one of the other guys?
You know what? I'll go Damian Lillard.
All right. All right.
I second
Arguments. All right. I guess I'm outnumbered. I was going to stay with William Contreras. So 2-1, Damian Lillard, our official newcomer of the year to Wisconsin sports. Which, yeah, that's a very, very easy one. Dylan's absolutely right. He's been nothing but great for the city of Milwaukee and the Bucs franchise. Which leads us to our next award, because I'm going to continue this here. The moment of the year. And this is actually why I went away from Damian Lillard as the newcomer of the year, because I think the moment of the year is when the Bucs announced, or when Adrian Wojnarowski announced that he had been acquired from Portland, was that moment. So that was my moment, just the instant buzz, the instant internet sensation with it. So that is what I have as my moment of the year, is just the Bucs acquiring him and everything that's come from that, with that. I do have to add, now that she's in the room, Shauna just got home from her work for the evening and the tutoring session. Her moment of the year is Aaron Rodgers getting traded from the Packers. So, Shauna, that is it's a bad take, but you get mentioned here.
Yeah. I saw
Bad
Sean
take.
nodding. Dylan
Bad
was shaking
take.
his head.
Bad take.
Sean, what do you got for us on this one?
I'm going with Shauna. That was exactly my moment of the year. Or just because I was just happy that he was gone. Not gonna lie.
Boo.
I can see before I get into mine, I can see that being the moment of the year just because of the electricity behind the actual moment.
Mm.
Whether you liked it or you didn't like it, that moment had a massive impact on Wisconsin,
Right.
and all of the sports fans.
Right.
That being said, I am agreeing with Fish, and my moment of the year is also Damian Lillard. Excluded, or not even counting his play, the electricity that has been invigorated in Milwaukee Bucks basketball and the fandom ever since he was announced to be on our roster. I can't think of a player that we've signed recently even close to this caliber.
You know, it's funny how you compare these two moments. I mean, very polarizing moves, right, and very opposite ends of the spectrum. You know, with Aaron Rodgers getting traded and the franchise deciding to go in the direction of Jordan Love and kind of rebuilding and refiguring itself out. Very polarizing, a lot of buzz, like you said, a lot of electricity, a lot of talk around it. And for better or worse, it's always kind of had, even the positive side of it is still, I would say, kind of negative, right? In the sense that, we don't know what Jordan Love's going to be. I still don't know if we 100% know what he's going to be. But even the best of it was, okay, we're going to acknowledge the success that the guy had, but it's bittersweet at best, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas the Dame Lillard acquisition has been nothing but hype, nothing but love. Yes, there's been a couple games here and there where it's like, we're paying this guy this. We went and sold out Drew Holiday and, to a lesser extent, Grayson Allen for this. But almost every time that happens, the next two games are way up here, the total, making those people be very, very quiet. So for that reason, I'm going to go with my own vote and Dylan's vote. And Dylan, are you staying with yours as well?
It's tough because I didn't even really think of the Aaron Rodgers trade as a moment because I was trying to stay positive. I guess that's subjective because I wasn't real pleased with Aaron Rodgers leaving, but that's just my own personal take. but that was a monumental moment in Green Bay sports. So I think ultimately I'm going to stick with Damian Lillard, but I cannot discredit what that Aaron Rodgers trade did for Wisconsin.
I will agree with that.
So what? So why don't we just do a coal winners? Both moments.
I don't want to. I cannot give that moment the popularity of an award win.
Why not?
Well, technically it was 2-2.
Yeah, it's 2-2. So it's cold.
If you're counting
She's
Shauna,
not even on the show
not,
right now.
No, then it doesn't count. Then it's 2-1.
She talked, so she was on the show.
She's not here. She's not here to vote. She's not. She made a nomination, but she did not vote.
She did vote. Shauna, you got to vote.
I'm voting. What am I voting for?
Moment of the year.
Okay.
Damian Lillard.
Damian Lillard being acquired by the Bucs, and all the hype that came with that.
Okay, keep going.
Or Aaron Rodgers getting traded.
That one.
2-2. Ha.
I guess it's tie. I guess we have a
It's a tie.
We have a co.
Which I think that's okay because they were the two biggest moments in Wisconsin sports recently, other than the Bucs most recent championship. But
you can't tell me that they're not both polarized ones for the year.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
And I would think I was going with Dylan. I was going more for the positive element, but I can concede that it was a very impactful, polarizing.
You and I may not think it's positive, but there's a large portion, probably over 50% of the Packers fan base thinks it is positive.
I don't even think it's not positive. I can see that it was probably time for it to happen. Whether or not I think it should have even been there in the first place, as in different discussion. But I can see how we got to where we had to get.
Right.
All right, moving on to our next award, we have probably my favorite one, and it's called the Kevin King Dumpster Fire of the Year. Now, this is what we've had this going for a few years now. It has evolved from the Kevin King, we had the Tyler Hero Noogie of the Week, but we need something that just showed how pissed off we can get and how bad something can be that it just doesn't warrant a noogie. And Kevin King's 2021 performance in the NFC Championship game did nothing but inspire this award. So that is the namesake, and it has lived on because, quite frankly, I'm not sure we've had anything to dethrone it.
Right.
Possibly till this year. So we may have a co-name on this award, because I have a feeling this is going to be a unanimous award without knowing where you guys are officially voting. But with that in mind, Dylan, I'm going to let you lead this one off.
Yeah. Unsurprisingly, my dumpster fire of the year nominee is going to be the Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator, Joe Barry. And to an extension of that, Matt LaFleur. After today, because I was going to go hard on Joe Barry until Matt LaFleur's comments today, when he had an opportunity to somewhat remedy the situation and instead has committed to Joe Barry being the defensive coordinator for the remainder of the year. So I'm still giving it to Joe Barry, but Matt LaFleur is now also on the hot seat.
I can agree with that in large. Sean, what do you got for us on this one?
I was thinking the same thing, Dylan. Dylan, is it Joe Barry?
Yeah, it's got to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
there's nothing else that comes close.
No.
You're right. Like there's been a lot of noogie-worthy things in the state of Wisconsin, and in sports as a whole. But this absolutely, by and large, takes the cake as the worst possible, upsetting, pissed off, whatever in the state of Wisconsin sports. It's constantly ridiculous. I will say, I totally get where a lot of people are coming from on the Matt LaFleur side of this. I would caveat that, and it's something he didn't say today, but I was asked this yesterday because I was very, as most Packer fans were on the internet yesterday, very pissed off during that Packer-Bucs game where Baker Mayfield, who I loved him in college, I loved him in Cleveland. The dude is not
dangerous.
perfect. The dude is not perfect passer rating. The guy's a gunslinger. He is known for throwing an interception or two in costly moments. You let him have a perfect passer rating on your home field in December while you're in a playoff hunt. Simply for the fact
the first
that
and only perfect passer.
Mm-hmm.
as an opponent.
Right, yes.
Aaron Rodgers is the only other one. He did it against the Raiders, I believe, in 2018 or 2019. So the second one ever, the first Packer opponent to do so. And it is just utterly absurd. Even the situational football that they're playing, where they're playing, it's 3rd and 4, and it feels like it's 3rd and inches with the tush push coming. It's not even close to stoppable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I think I am pretty sure, I'm going to check the stats on this, but I feel like yesterday we stopped them on 3rd down twice, I think, all game. And once was a field goal. The other, I believe, they got on a 4th and whatever.
Yeah.
But it is beyond baffling. It is beyond upsetting. The only caveat and the only defense I have of Matt LaFleur's decision is that I don't think he believes that there's anybody else on this coaching staff maybe that could fill in for 3 games. Because I was looking at...
I could fill in for 3 games.
Well, sure. But you know what I'm saying? I looked at... Because somebody had posed the question, okay, if you're going to fire Joe Barry, who's it going to be? That's become some sort of gotcha to the Joe Barry defenders.
Right, yeah.
Which is laughable at best. But all in all, just utterly awful, really.
7 for 11 was Tampa Bay's 3rd down efficiency.
1 for 1 on... That seems... I can think of the one. They go for the field goal twice. They didn't punt, did they?
Yeah, they had one really long one, didn't they?
Oh, that's right. Towards the end of the game. You're right.
Like a 60-yarder.
You're right. Yep. Okay. Yes, you are correct. But I feel like they were 7 for 7 like the first quarter, or 6 for 7 in the first half.
Sure felt like that.
Yeah, no, I got nothing beyond that. Like I said, it just all sorts of frustrating. Like I said, to the point where I'm almost forgiving Kevin King. Because it almost seems like this might have been Joe Barry's fault. Now, that's not entirely true because, Kevin King played under Mike Patton and sucked then too. So he's not totally off the hook. But there is some degree where he gets a little bit off the hook where this might become the Kevin King, Joe Barry dumpster fire of the year.
Right.
So that was a pretty easy one. Which leads us to our 4th and final award, which is the MVP, the Root for Wisconsin MVP. Shauna's doing Christmas presents right now, so I had to toss.
Yeah, we were a little confused there.
Which nobody listening to the podcast version of this is going to understand that. I don't know if we're going to do the video or not. So if we don't do the video, the look on these guys' faces was absolutely absurd. It was awesome. But if I don't release the video, just know that happened. If I do release the video, you're going to see me passing a Hobby Lobby bag to Shauna, who's sitting in the corner. So anyway, Root for Wisconsin MVP. I'm very curious because I'm not even sure I 100% know where I'm going with this yet on my nominee. So, Dylan, I'm going to let you lead this off because I know you have one.
I do have one, and it's going to be a relatively interesting one because it's almost not at all performance-based. And my nominee is Jordan Love. You and I were talking about this a little earlier today. Obviously, his performances have left quite a bit to be desired. He showed glimpses of potential greatness. glimpses of regressing. But the thing that has been consistent with him is his attitude and his pride in wearing, this green and gold. And he stepped into one of the most difficult situations that a young quarterback possibly can in following arguably the greatest Packer ever. He had fans, he had critics in his head for months leading up to the season. He still got him in his head, and he still is doing nothing but being humble, being disciplined, doing his best. And in a down year, in a rebuilding year like we're having, that kind of guy is, you just can't put a value on him. So that's why I'm going Jordan Love. That's my nominee.
That's a good one. And when you had said it to me today, it was kind of one of those where it definitely needs to be talked about. I wasn't sure I would make that nomination on my end, but I can definitely appreciate it and agree with a lot of that sentiment. Because at least I will say the one thing Jordan Love kind of has going for him is the amount of people who wanted him to become the starting quarterback. Because there was a pretty heavy swing that way. But because like when Aaron Rodgers took over, I mean, there was such a love for Brett Favre where it was so polarizing. But even then, I mean, you're coming off a guy who 2 and 3 seasons ago won basically back-to-back MVPs. So
right.
It's not like, I think, Brett Favre had a good year that last year in Green Bay before he retired. But like the writing was kind of on the wall the years before that, right? Like we can all kind of agree with that, where yes, the injury happens, so it becomes a little bit easier to swallow. But you also never know if that happens if he doesn't get, if he's playing here or
right.
whatever the situation is. So I'll agree with that. Sean, what do you got for us on this one?
You know what? I was thinking Jordan Love too, just for a lot of the same reasons that Dylan was going with. Just for him, just being able to take over and just stay humble, and just not let the critics get to him. Because, I mean, he struggled at the beginning of the season, and he turned it around, and he's kind of leveled off again here. But I think he's right where you kind of need him to be right at this time. So that's what I'm going with.
Yeah, just to have something different here, I'm going to go Giannis, just for the sheer reason that the dude is still playing at probably the highest level of anybody in the state. I would argue he's still probably doing a lot more in terms of, I mean, he does so much for charity that doesn't really get talked about and stuff like that. It's night and day different, situations for Love versus Giannis. So I'm probably going to give my vote surprisingly to Jordan Love just based on the conversation. But I think you have to mention Giannis for the situation. The things he does on a national scale, on the court, off the court, all the the funny stuff. I mean, the dude's hilarious too. Even coming
I think
down,
a lot of the same. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say even coming down and chasing a ball to a locker room. But go ahead, Dylan.
I think a lot of the same personality things that I said about Love also translate over to Giannis, because he is truly proud to be in a Milwaukee Bucks jersey. And, he's been able to pull in a big time, like the biggest free agent that Milwaukee has signed in my recent memory. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's a solid nomination.
Yeah, and so actually, just coincidentally, I saw that I believe on this date, about 10 years ago, or pretty close to this date 10 years ago, is when he made his first career start. Which again is I remember when the Bucs drafted him, I was so pissed. Like I'll be honest, I was on the wrong side of that, just because it didn't make sense for where the Bucs were as a franchise. I mean, you're taking a guy, you're a top 10 draft pick, and you're taking a guy that's going to be a project when I believe at the time they were only like a year or two away from their most recent playoff appearance after they had acquired like Monta Ellis, and you had, I believe you had just gotten Greg Monroe around that time. So, yeah, actually it was today. It was today, 12/18/2013. Adrian Wojnarowski. Milwaukee's close to moving rookie phenom Giannis Antetokounmpo into starting lineup. League sources tell Yahoo. Bucs host Knicks tonight. So, with that in mind, for 10 years, I don't even remember this guy's first name. It was Coach Drew.
Larry Drew?
That's what I'm thinking.
I think that sounds right.
But that's where the Bucs were. I mean, to that point, they had made 2 playoff appearances, had not won a playoff series since the 2001 playoffs, where they ultimately ended up getting beat by the 76ers in the Eastern Conference Finals, who then got bitched up at the Lakers. But just where that franchise has come to, becoming a team that most of the time you don't have to watch until March or April now. Like, if you watch, great, but if you don't, no one's going to fault you. In 10 years, you've gotten a championship, you've gotten multiple All-Stars, which I don't think the Bucs really had before Giannis since Michael Redd, if I'm not mistaken. So just that progression of where this Bucs franchise is from Milwaukee, which no one wants to come to Milwaukee as a whole and play here.
Until now.
Right.
Well, until now. And to where they're annually competing for the 1 seed or the 2 seed and, expected to be in the Eastern Conference Finals, bare minimum. Says nothing
They're
short
a perennial championship threat.
Exactly. You can at least say about the Packers that the Packers have kind of had that for the better part of 30 years now. The Brewers haven't really quite gotten fully over that hump, but have been solid for the last, you can really even say 15 years at this point. Since back to 2008, you can say that they've been a playoff threat and potential as a dark horse every single year. And really haven't gone, I mean, yeah, they had some lean years from like 2015 and 2016, but kind of a 2-year dump off versus the Bucs were a dump off until even 2015 probably. We start becoming kind of a little bit of a threat. So with that in mind, it's time to officially vote here. And I'm assuming both of you guys are going to keep your own vote.
Yep.
I can agree with that. So with that in mind, Dylan, it is time for us to leave you here, and Sean and I will pick up a couple pieces, but any parting thoughts as the newest member of the Root for Wisconsin programming?
I'm happy to be here. It's going to be a blast, and there's not another show by the time the holidays are wrapped up. Hope everybody has a nice holiday season. Enjoy the food, enjoy the beer, enjoy the time with family. Stay happy, stay safe, stay well, and I'll catch you guys later.
All right. Yes, I'll let Dylan drop off here, but this is going to be our last show in 2023. So with that in mind, before we wrap up here, I'm going to add in here just while I have boys on the line. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Do you say Happy Kwanzaa? Happy Kwanzaa.
Sure.
Merry Ramadan, Happy Festivus, Merry Solstice, anything that you believe or celebrate, whatever it is. In this winter season, enjoy the time with friends, family, food and beer, like Dylan said. So with that in mind, Dylan, great to have you on the team officially and great to have you here for the episode. And Sean and I will take it from here.
Okay. All right. I'll see you guys later.
See ya.
See you.
Bye.
All right. So now it's just me and Sean here. We do have some time here to take a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the happenings for the week because that actually went a lot quicker than I thought it would. So I'm pretty proud of that. I'm going to be honest. I'm very proud of that. So with that in mind...
Interruptions.
I know. I had to pass a bag.
Right?
All right. So we did a pretty deep dive in the Bucs. Really nothing to talk about since Thursday. Because that's kind of the nature of the holiday season here and why we're only doing this episode before the end of the year. is that schedules get busy, and so went last Thursday, and now it's Monday. The NFL is still in Week 15, so not really a whole lot to update. Bucs did get 2 wins over the weekend, back-to-back games, back-to-back impressive performances by Giannis and Damian Lillard. We just talked about the guy twice. It's been a long day. Sean, I don't know if you know this or not. So I was telling Dylan, and I don't know if I told our listeners, I had to do the Green Bay Phoenix coaches show today. And I truly was not aware it was happening until about 5 o'clock tonight. There was what we call a lack of communication. You ever listen to the song Civil War by Guns N' Roses? It starts off with what we got here is failure to communicate. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I was at the library and stopped to check my phone, and I flipped on Facebook, and I'm like, oh shit, there's a coach's shift tonight. That'd have been nice to know. So instead of starting this at about 6 o'clock, like I had planned on at 6:30, it came like 7:30. So that's what happens. But yeah, so not a whole lot in the Bucs sphere. Last week with Justin, we had talked pretty heavily on Green Bay men and women's basketball. The women got Coach Borseth win 801. So it was a pretty lopsided win on Saturday over, who the hell did they play? It was a pretty big deal because it was something that they played. Oh, the St. Louis Billikens. Last year they won that game 73-70. This year it was a total domination. They were up by 30 most of the game. So absolute blast covering them. Coach Borseth gets win 801. Not counting, I believe his Division III games count, but his junior college wins do not. So he didn't know exactly how many JUCO wins he had, but it would probably put that even up there even more. They did have another pregame ceremony for him and gave him a game ball for 801. Did not have to chase UIC down for it after the previous game. So shout out to UIC for not taking the home team ball for the milestone accomplishment. With that, aside from that, the men did go to Norman, Oklahoma in one of those mid-major fundraisers, they're called unofficially, and got their shit kicked in by the number 11 ranked team in the country. But for most of the first half, they did contend with them, which is really what you can all you can ask for sometimes. I know coaches won't say that, but it's very realistic expectation. So. Yeah.
Right.
You stayed with them for probably the first 18 minutes or 17 minutes of the first half. Halftime got away from them a little bit, and then, from there it was all Sooners, which that's what good teams do. Oklahoma's on one of the largest win streaks in the country. So that's just the nature of the game,
Right.
But beyond that, so that is kind of an update there. The Wisconsin Badgers men I believe they've played since the last time we talked, which I believe was last Thursday as well. Maybe they haven't.
Aren't they playing recording?
They do play on the 22nd again. The men's team has not played since last Thursday, so they will conclude their December schedule on the 22nd, so this coming Friday, against Chicago State.
Holiday tournaments this year or no?
Not for Christmas. Holiday tournaments have kind of gone more towards Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Time frame. So no Christmas type tournament or anything like that. The next game after the 22nd, they do get a pretty long stretch off where they will play Iowa to start Big Ten play on January 2nd. So pretty lengthy time in between, but probably exactly what the doctor needs and what the doctor would order for a long, grueling Big Ten schedule coming up. So very excited by that. Marquette did play last Thursday night as well when we were recording. Went to the wire against St. Thomas of Minnesota. Got that win 84-79. They are back in action tomorrow night against Providence, and a 4.5-point favorite on the road. So, keeping an eye out there. The men and the Green Bay women. The women are back home tomorrow night for UW Parkside, which is a very odd. I was talking to my dad about this tonight. So, talking about the polarity of Green Bay Phoenix basketball, the women almost always play a very tough non-conference schedule. And this is not a dig at Parkside. Parkside is the only Division II team in the state of Wisconsin in the NCAA, but it still is, for lack of a better term, an inferior opponent. The team's not going to tell you that. Players aren't going to tell you that. Coaches aren't going to tell you that. I'm going to tell you that. It's an inferior opponent, which the Green Bay women really don't get. The timing of it is a little odd. It's becoming a really big reality in college basketball that mid-majors really don't get the hard schedule games, especially as we get closer to conference season starting up for the bigger conferences. And you need a home game. I mean, you got to find a team that wants to come into Green Bay, and that's kind of one of those really weird things here where because Green Bay is good enough, I'm surprised teams don't want to, like these bigger schools don't want to. Because I would argue that losing at home for some of these bigger schools is a bigger deal than losing at Green Bay, which is one of the better college basketball crowds for women's basketball in the country. Having, been a part of this team in some capacity, whether it be working for athletics or for the radio station that covers them, for the better part of 10 years now, they are one of the most traveled, one of the best fan bases in the country. Maybe just shy of Tennessee, South Carolina, and UConn, and Notre Dame. They're in that same echelon, though, in terms of fan bases. So I'm surprised in that capacity that teams don't want to come into Green Bay or do a home and home, because it is, it is a good one. And if, it's kind of one of those where, if you do a home and home and maybe you catch them sleeping one year, you beat the crap out of them, and it boosts your resume a little bit. But nevertheless, the Green Bay women will be playing Parkside this week, and then the men do have their last pre-holiday game, and that is against, as I mentioned earlier, the Milwaukee School of Engineering, MSOE, a Division III opponent from within the state of Wisconsin, which, again, talk about a fundraiser game where Green Bay has to go get their shit pounded in by the Oklahoma Sooners. This is kind of the version to get the other way around. That way you can get, you can get they call it a non-counter because it doesn't count for the opposing school for their standings or anything like that. But you can get a game like that in. You kind of get, it's not a guaranteed win by any means. We've seen Division III teams take down a number of schools, including a couple Power Fives this year. It's happened. But it is one of those things where, you kind of do hope to get a get-right game. And I think Coach Wicks is the first coach I've ever actually heard say that. Like, where he admits it, but it's also, like I said, it's the reality of mid-major college basketball where you kind of got to give the guys a win and make them say, hey, like, we're doing this pretty good. He pointed out, and this is another kind of interesting thing he had talked about when we talk about perspective. Green Bay will go into this game, I believe, 5-7 on the year. 5-7 on the year. 4 of those wins are against Division I schools. One of them was Stout earlier this year. And so you take them where you get them. But if I put on a piece of paper, Sean, 7-3, you think that's pretty good?
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that in mind, University of South Dakota, which is getting some love for AP votes and whatnot, 4 of their 7 wins are against D3 schools. So it's kind of one of those, because of the nature of the business and division, mid-majors have to do it. It's just kind of has to become acceptable,
Right.
So that's the state of college basketball. Beyond that, we've got Milwaukee Brewers, who actually really haven't done anything since last time we talked. So I think it's kind of one of those no news is good news, barring like a big trade. So I'm not mad about it. I'm just kind of...
It's got to be coming.
Something's got to be coming, right?
Coming.
Some sort of trade has to be coming in. Either the Brewers buying in and surprising the whole world, or the one that we're probably all waiting for, that Corbin Burns trade.
Right.
But
I think it's going to be after all the free agents fall.
Well, and interestingly enough, at the winter meetings, both GMs and reporters, and the Brewers, for that matter, are saying, like, including Matt Arnold, they're saying that Corbin Burns isn't going to be dealt. Which begs the question, if he's not going to be dealt and you're going to go into a season where he's going to be one of your guys, unless you're hoping for a hell of a rental haul, why are you not acquiring more talent to go all in then?
Right.
You know, you have enough of a farm system where if that's going to be the route you're going to go, it's time to start dealing on that end of it then.
Mm-hmm.
Or sign an extension. And that's the baffling part, is none of that has happened.
Do you even think, no matter what, if they buy in, are they even going to compete with the Dodgers and the Braves?
In the National League, like when it comes time to play,
right?
That's tough. I mean, I want to say yes, because if they, depending on what pieces they would bring in, this is a solid, not great roster, right? Like as is right now. You still have William Contreras, who's pre-arbitration, so you still have control of him for quite some time. You do have to figure something out with Willy Adames, assuming you want to bring him back as one of your guys, which the power numbers would indicate that you do.
Yeah,
technically,
if you get a good enough deal for him, you do trade him also. I mean...
Right. No, I wholeheartedly agree.
Nature of the beast that way.
Right. As of right now, you technically don't have an MLB first baseman. Rowdy Tellez just signed with the Pirates, and Carlos Santana is still a free agent. So you do not actively have a MLB vet playing first base, which I think Carlos Santana is more likely to come back than not and play at least one more year. I think he's 38, 39 years old, and you do like a 1 year, $3 million contract, something like that.
Right.
I think everybody will be pretty okay with that. I mean, the guy got a Gold Glove nominee.
Yep.
Here in Milwaukee, which I don't think anybody accounted for. But I mean, the guy was clutch, so I think we'll take that. Still a very loaded outfield, and that's probably the interesting thing. You look at second, you've got Bryce Trang still under wraps for quite some time. Third base, you can go Monasterio, you can go Tyler Black, who's kind of sitting in the wings waiting, and potentially, there's rumors that he could get another one of those big rookie contracts like Churiel just got, because he's also been, pretty proven at the minor league level. So he's kind of like, what did the Brewers do? He was a very interesting non-call up last September. I think if it would have been under the original, huge roster expansion in September, I think he would have. But now where it's kind of staggered and you have to kind of pick guys, you don't really get the option to do that. Owen Miller's still hanging around as one of your utility guys. I want a stereo, like I said. And you start looking at that outfield. Like I said, it's a stacked outfield. You've got the two rookies in Garrett Mitchell, Sal Frelick. Also, Joey Wiemer hasn't gone anywhere, which I think you kind of have to look at, seeing if one of those guys are going to attract a trade. I don't know about you, Sean, but I think Joey Wiemer is a lot more expendable than not of the three. Nothing against him. I'm a big fan of his, but if you're going to make a move, that might be the one to make.
Right.
I think teams will buy in high on him. You do have Tyrone Taylor, I believe, is still under contract for at least another couple years yet. At least another year or two before being in his final year of arbitration. And then you've got Christian Yelich, who you're tied to for, I believe, the next 5 years yet. Which apparently there was some noise that the Blue Jays were calling on him. I don't think you make that deal. I think Christian Yelich kind of needs to stay, even though you have a very loaded outfield and a very big group of people, and even with the younger talent kind of coming in, I think you need a veteran out there to kind of show them the way of it, and at the very least, kind of be a consistent bat. Where even if he's hitting like this year, I think his average was 270 or something to that effect. I think that speaks volumes of what you need out in the outfield as like an everyday type guy. Or even most games. I think he was second in the league in games this year. So, by and large, I'm okay with a lot of that.
Right.
What say you, Sean? What? I guess if you're Matt Arnold, if you had a day to be the GM, and within Milwaukee Brewer logic, because we're not going to turn forced trades on and unlimited budgets on like we would on the show.
Why not?
We know it's not going to happen.
That's what the Dodgers did.
Huh?
It's what the Dodgers did.
Yeah, they pretty much, right?
So
what are you doing if you? I'll even give you a week.
I think
You have a week. You have a week. A budget of, I don't know. I'll give you $30 million.
I would have went out and signed like a Sonny Gray. I really feel like Trevor Bauer would do good for the Milwaukee Brewers. I feel like that's a guy that could be a sneaky ad for a 1-year prove-it deal.
Sure.
Now that everything's done with him. And then I think you got to go. You either got to go get your power hitting first baseman, something like that, and maybe a guy to play third. Like we need a guy like Aramis Ramirez was for us for those few years. Just a guy to be put behind Yelich and just have people be able to pitch to him a little bit more, because I know they still don't pitch to him like they should. Even
sure.
But I think that starting pitcher role is the biggest need right now, especially with Brandon Woodruff being out for the year.
Well, he's not even on the team anymore.
Oh, that's right. He's not even on the team anymore. That's right. So, and I don't know.
Quite a few names still out there. Stop me when you hear one you like, okay? These are the mid-rotation options. Frankie Montas, Hyun Jin Ryu, Michael Lorenzen, Sean Manaea, Mike Clevenger, Alex Wood, James Paxton.
I like the Alex Wood one. I like that lefty. Either Alex Wood or there was a guy two before him.
Mike Lorenzen?
Clevenger.
That was right before him.
Okay.
Yeah, I would maybe even look at Clevenger because you kind of have that lefty guy in Wade Miley who you already brought back. I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world to have two guys. I think the Brewers were tied to Alex Wood towards the deadline last year already.
Do we still have Eric Lauer, or did he walk too?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think he's walked. I think he's still around.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna say that, but I don't know of what his contract status officially is, if he's been waived or.
Gotcha.
Whatever. And then a position player. Would you go out and try to get a guy like a Matt Chapman and break the bank there, or would you kind of go more for,
I think you make a trade rather than a free agent signing.
Sure.
I feel like you package a couple guys together. I think because do we still? Who am I thinking of here?
If it's not Keston Hiura, because he is gone.
No, I know him. The third baseman from the start of the year.
Brian Anderson?
No. He had played all the positions. Second shortstop. He got hurt with a knee issue this year.
Owen Miller?
No.
I think those are the two big players who played a lot of third outside of Donaldson.
Oh, I can't think of what his name is. Hang on.
Monasterio.
I gotta look here.
I'm really curious who you're trying to pull here because I've listed a lot of these guys.
No, I know you have. It was a guy like Colton Wong, but not Colton Wong.
That sounds a little racist, Sean.
No, I know.
I'm eagerly waiting for this.
Yeah, I know. I gotta find it. Luis Urias, but we don't have him anymore. I see.
Yeah, that's correct. We traded him to Boston at the deadline.
That's what I was thinking of. I forgot.
You know, I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I completely forgot he was a Brewer. I really did. I have completely forgotten about his time here.
Right.
I could not, for the life of me, I didn't even think of his name. I pulled up Brewer's stats, and I would have had no idea.
You were gonna pull out Orlando Arcia.
I'd have been more likely to pull Orlando Arcia than Luis Urias. I love me some Wicco when he was here.
Right.
But that one completely went over my head. You lost me.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
1 home run on the year. Was aggressively average his whole time here.
Right.
Hit a $194 for the season, including his time with Boston. 2 home runs with the Red Sox, so they really got their value there.
Right.
God.
So that was the guy that I was, thinking of, but can't trade him if he's not on our team anymore. So
I'm a little mad that I forgot that this guy existed. I'm not gonna lie, but at the same time, when Josh Donaldson outplays you at 39 years old, or whatever he is,
right,
that kind of means you're forgettable.
Yeah. So I just feel like they need a bat and they need a big pitcher.
I'd agree with that if you're going to go all in.
Right. Otherwise, you're trading Corbin Burns and you're just kind of going with the flow of the way the year's going to go. You're bringing up Mizorowski and just trying to get him some time and going
Tyler
with
Black, Churio.
Right. Because we got Ashby coming back this year too.
Yes,
Yeah.
he'll be back.
I don't know. Is he a starter or is he more your...
I think he is kind of what Adrian Hauser is. He can start if you need him to. He could be like a 4th or 5th starter. He can be a bullpen guy, kind of like your long reliever. Especially with now how there is the universal DH, you can have a guy like that more. Kind of be a longer reliever.
Yep.
Which, for what it's worth, I'm surprised that hasn't been more of a role since then.
Right.
I think the Brewers have done it pretty well. I think the Rays have done it, and that's really been the extent of it, where you have a guy maybe go 2-3 innings and another guy go 2-3 innings and get to your back into your bullpen. If you're winning.
Right, exactly.
Now I just remember how much I hate Adrian Hauser. We're going off the rails with me being angry because Adrian Hauser just I can't. We're about to get fired up here because I'm going to talk about the Packers here in a second, but just the guy is average, but he can be so much more and he can be so much worse. It just I don't understand how a pro athlete can be so opposite ends of the spectrum any given appearance that they play in. Right? Can you think of any other pro athlete in any other sport, Sean, that is that wildly varying? Besides maybe Giannis's free throws or something like that? Because I legitimately, I can't think of a guy who on any given night can look like an MVP, but on any given night could get cut.
Right.
Maybe some backup quarterbacks out there. Maybe Matt Flynn. Yeah, Matt Flynn had one career game and made a living off of it.
Yep.
But no, honest to God, I cannot think of another guy in any current sport or even in the past that is that varying. Maybe maybe prime Carson Wentz, where he was still okay. But even then, like, he had an almost MVP season until he tore his ACL.
Right.
And he did it for a whole year. He wasn't, flip-flopping around throughout the year.
Unless you go Ryan Fitzpatrick. That might be your guy.
That might be the guy. Except he's played on more teams.
Right.
Which Adrian Hauser probably is online to do so once he gets towards the end of his arbitration eligibility. I could very much see him being like who's the dude that's played in the World Series, like 3 different World Series for 3 different teams now? There's a pitcher, I think, but they're also like Jock Peterson too.
Right.
But just a guy, Sergio Romo comes to mind. You sign him for a year, you go to the World Series, you win or lose, and then he goes somewhere else, plays for another World Series the next year.
Right.
I could see Adrian Hauser being that guy for like a 5th starter for some of those teams.
Yeah. Like for
Oh yeah, he'd be a great fit in Houston. Or like a great fit probably in Philadelphia.
The Braves.
Now I'm mad because I can see this happening and him having like a great year and winning a World Series with Philadelphia, and me just sitting here, this mother,
Right.
Remember how 2 weeks ago when we were talking about the Brewers and I was saying how the only situation I'm okay with Corbin Burns getting traded as long as it's at the St. Louis, and then because I know if he goes to St. Louis he's going to win probably 3 or 4 World Series. I'm almost that level of mad about a situation with Adrian Hauser that hasn't happened.
So Adrian Hauser is going to go to St. Louis and win the World Series?
That might make me more mad than Corbin Burns. At least Corbin Burns is good, and like the haul that we would get back for him would probably be pretty good. And I could say, hey, this guy we stole from the Cardinals, and no, this is one of our franchise guys around Jackson Chourio. I feel like I could say that about that trade. If he goes and if friggin' Adrian Hauser goes there and wins a couple World Series with them, Sean, I can't handle that. I can't. I'd be so sad and so depressed and just unworldly angry. I don't think he would unseat Yadier Molina as my most hated baseball player, but it would be damn close. Like, if he's good. If he goes there, and wins the World Series but sucks and doesn't pitch at all, I can swallow that.
As long as it puts a scoreless outing against the Brewers?
I wouldn't even care. I mean, as long as it's not like the NLCS or something like that. If it happens to the NLCS, I'm going to be like the maddest person. But if it happens where it's like, yeah, they beat us in June and he has a good game, but, kind of fades away in obscurity and they keep him on the World Series roster or something like that. He pitches, he gives up a couple runs and is average or whatever. I can swallow that. But if he goes out and has that, like, hey, I finally reached my potential type year, or it happens against us in the playoffs, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to need therapy because there's going to be bad outcomes.
You can't afford therapy.
I can. I'm going to need my stomach pumped because I'm going to start drinking.
Gordy's.
Yeah,
therapy.
Gordy's. I'm going to need Gordy's therapy. All right. Moving on, Sean, we'll just kind of retouch on the Packers here. I don't want to. I cannot. I will say this. I'm gonna try to be positive about this. Jordan Love, all things considered, played pretty decent against the Buccaneers. He played good enough to probably win that game. If you tell me on Saturday or Monday the Packers offense scores 20 points without Christian Watson and with Aaron Jones playing in kind of a limited role in the second half, I'm okay with that. I think they probably win that game. Because I can't imagine Baker Mayfield throwing for 4 touchdowns. I mean, that he didn't do that at Oklahoma. And again, I'm not even a Baker Mayfield hater. I don't love him the way I used to, but he didn't do that then.
Right.
And we made him look like an all-pro. He's probably going to make a whole bunch of money after this because he's on a 1-year deal. He probably just made his next contract off yesterday. Probably going to win NFC Player of the Week again. We're going to have back-to-back weeks of that, which he deserves because he tore us apart. Deserves it more than Tommy DeVito does.
Right. Tommy DeVito didn't deserve it at all.
But it's just Jordan Love played well. I still am gonna go on the thing of if it's not Christian Watson, you still need that kind of guy. Because even yesterday we kind of saw them, the Buccaneers able to play downhill a little bit more because they didn't have to really honor the deep ball as much. Dontavian Wicks is a great find. I think the Packers still do miss Luke Musgrave a lot. I think, getting the combination of him and Watson back is what's going to make this offense thrive at its most. Whether or not that happens this season, or even if we're looking at next season with, some sort of, a year where realistically the only offensive needs I think in the draft this year would be an offensive line and maybe a running back.
I think we really got to go heavy on offensive line.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Myers got bullied. Everybody pretty much got bullied by that Tampa Bay defense.
Yeah, and granted, Vita Vea is a great player, but he's not. He's one guy versus. I would say that they have a pretty solid but not great offensive line anymore.
Right.
I wouldn't put them, or defensive line, excuse me. I wouldn't put them where they were when they were winning Super Bowls with Tom Brady.
No, but you got to figure Kenny Clark's better than Vita Vea.
Kenny Clark had a very quietly good game and has had a very quietly good season.
He did, but I'm just throwing that out there. I mean,
no, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. That brings me to my next point. And I had said this earlier in the game yesterday. We're all happy. Kingsley Enagbari, thank God he missed Rookie show last week and rehabbed the toe. I texted Rookie that yesterday, and he thought it was really funny because it was. But, you get that strip sack after the first possession, which was really bad. And you're sitting there like, yeah, I think I've really figured that this defense is so loaded with talent that it performs in spite of Joe Barry. If you look at the end of last year where they went on the false hope rally last year, and you're looking at a team that forced turnovers based on sheer talent. And now that Jair is still inactive, because of
that he deleted all the Packers stuff off his Twitter.
I saw that was a headline. It turns out it was he deleted a lot of stuff, and it wasn't just Packer stuff. He still associates with the team. I think he still has it in his bio. So I don't. There's a lot of rumors out there. I think it's so stupid when people sit there and stare at social media for stuff like that. And even saying that people believe that he's protesting Joe Barry still being the defensive coordinator.
Wow.
NFL, I wouldn't blame him. I'm going to say, as a person, I wouldn't blame him. However, I would say that NFL careers are too short to be that petty, right? Even the Rodgers truthers and the conspiracy theorists like Shauna, who say that he's tanking. She's in the other room. That's why I can say it.
Oh.
But even the people who say that, yeah, Aaron Rodgers is tanking because he doesn't want to be a Green Bay Packer anymore. No, no one does that. Because the reputation that you kind of develop in the NFL and with other teams and with your teammates, people would see through that immediately. No one goes out and doesn't try. Coaches are coaching for either their current job or their next one. Players, even Aaron Rodgers, are playing for their current job or their next job. I mean, he had a quote-unquote down year in 2018 and 2019. That's why they go draft Jordan Love. I mean, the writing was on the wall. His bad, or I'm not going to say bad play because he was still pretty good, but his less than standard play at the time led to them picking his replacement and then kind of them forcing him out of town. So, I mean, make of that what you will. That's even to that extent, even if the relationship's not great, that's the reality of the NFL.
Right, exactly.
And all sports for that matter, too. I don't think players tank. I don't think coaches tank. I think GMs tank. And even that is subjective at best because, again, they're still doing something for their job unless they have an understanding with the owner that they're going to have to tank for a year, get a couple draft picks, and and go. If they have a guaranteed, 3-4 year job security where an owner is willing to be patient, then yeah, tank a year.
Right. You look at Houston this year.
Right.
Nobody expected them to be where they are in the playoff hunt and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So they were expected to be bottom tier again, and everybody's going to walk all over them, and here they are.
Right. And that just kind of shows that significance of hitting on a young quarterback and being able to build everywhere else.
Right.
And, you get a couple acquisitions, you hit on some of these draft picks, which I will say, I think offensively speaking, even though they haven't gotten that first round guy, I will say offensively speaking, I think the Packers have hit on a majority of their draft picks as of late, excluding maybe Jay Sternberger and maybe some of the offensive linemen just because they draft those in bulk. But you look at, when he's healthy, Christian Watson is legitimately good. Romeo Doubs is legitimately good. Dontavian Wicks, Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave are legitimately good good players.
They're one person now?
Tucker Musgrave, Luke Kraft. But you know what I mean? Like, these are legitimate, they're proving that these guys are legitimate enough guys.
Right.
Outside of maybe Christian Watson, which is to be determined. I think he proves more value than that shows up on a stat sheet, but either way, like I said, that's still a pretty big role.
Right.
And he executes it when he's healthy. Maybe A.J. Dillon, the last kind of questionable offensive draft pick that Josiah DeGuara.
I was gonna say Josh Myers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think he's all.
Oh, I don't either. I'm just talking about skill players right now.
No, I get you.
Just skill players. Maybe DeGuara. I think the tight end boom this year between Musgrave, Kraft, and even
Blake Sims.
Ben Sims. But even,
Why does Blake Sims sound right?
That's a good question.
Okay, never mind.
But no, all jokes aside, you look at your offensive skill players. DeGuara and Sternberger are kind of misses, and even A.J. Dillon's been valuable at times.
But I feel like A.J. Dillon's valuable, but not a second-round pick valuable.
I'd agree with that.
I feel like if he was a third, fourth-round pick, we'd be way hyped on him. But a second-round pick for position you didn't need at the time,
it's not really his fault.
No,
but combining that with it being in the same draft as taking Jordan Love doesn't help either.
Right.
Because no matter how you feel about, the situation to move on from Rodgers, and we're still figuring out Jordan Love, which, again, he played good enough yesterday, I think.
He played good enough to win that game if you got an okay defense.
Yeah, think about this as a concept, Sean. Look back to 2011 and even 2016. So two seasons that had very high expectations, right? 2016, the Packers go to the NFC Championship game against the Falcons, get their doors blown off because the defense is off. And the Falcons were really good that year. 2011, Packers go 15-1, but we're having to put up like 40-some-odd points a game to win those games. The writing was on the wall that if they're going to lose, it's going to be because they can't keep up with the team. Happened against the Chiefs, ironically, in the regular season, the one loss, and then they lose in the divisional round to the Giants. So you keep that all in mind, and that's with, Aaron Rodgers playing at MVP levels those years. He won the MVP in 11 and 2 years before that in 14. So keeping that in mind, you look at where he was then, you're expecting a first-year starter, basically, to have to go score every possession and be absolutely perfect with the youngest offense in the NFL at an average of 24 years old or something like that.
23, 24, something like that.
Which is nothing short of absurd. Like the expectation to have that around you is maddeningly annoying. Like I saw that as a tweet yesterday. I can't remember who said it, but I didn't click until then. But that's the expectation for him to win a game like yesterday.
Right.
But the defense really can't get you a stop. They got one maybe 2 punts.
Yeah.
And by that time, the first punt, I want to say it was a
They were
2-score game by then.
Right. They were down 10 at that time.
And even yesterday, I mean, you look at, you can't stop a field. You're even begging for a field goal because you're going down 10 multiple times to that game. Like you're in a point where, you even when you score a touchdown, you throw the one to Kraft was the first one. Who had the other one?
Jaden Reed.
Yes. You get the touchdown on Jaden Reed in the back of the end zone, which was an incredible throw, incredible catch, both on the ball skill and the toe tap.
Right.
You get that second touchdown, you're like, hey, it's a 3-point game. All you got to do is hold them to a field goal. You're going to play this bend, don't break bullshit. You're going to hold them to a field goal.
Right.
It's a 1-score game still, which I know that, I think the Packers end up kicking a field goal later, but even then it's a 3-point game and you're still, field goals are okay.
All you got to do is kick a field goal at the end of the game and tie it.
Right. But when you're constantly down 10, you're down 2 scores, so you got to score. You're in 4-down territory when you maybe should only be in 3.
Right.
You really that sets such a different tone for a game of what you need to do. Yeah, the Packers did not force a punt. They forced 1 punt yesterday, and it was the game was 10-10 in the second quarter.
That's when it was? Okay.
That was the only Tampa Bay punt by the drive summaries I'm showing. Tampa Bay's that's second quarter. Where's the third and fourth? Maybe it was 2 punts. This is laid out really dumb. But Tampa Bay scored every possession in the second half.
Right.
Which is, again, enough to drive you crazy.
Yeah. And it's not like they were just kicking field goals. They were scoring touchdowns every drive.
Right. Packers go into the half down 13-10. 3-and-out the first drive, which, again, should never happen. You should never have a 3-and-out your first drive out of the half. Tampa Bay touchdown, 8 plays, 66 yards, 326. Packers answer back right away, so it's 2017. Tampa Bay goes on another 9-play, 75-yard drive. Packers go down and kick a field goal, 27-20. Tampa Bay, 6 plays, 75 yards. Packers fumble, then Tampa Bay runs with the game, 8 plays, 36 yards. And honestly, I know we touched about it earlier in our award shows part of it, but it's just when even Matt LaFleur today in his press conference saying that they're going to stick with Joe Barry through the end of the season, which I think pisses a lot of Packer fans off at this point. Playoffs are still a realistic possibility, but they're not an expectation anymore, I don't think. It'd be nice, but at the same time, you're costing draft picks at this point. Right now, you've gone from the 7th seed to the 11th seed and the 11th pick in the draft. So, I could realistically see them losing to Carolina next week, and making Bryce Young a third straight player of the week.
Right, but I sure hope not.
Well, I say it. Me too. I could realistically, you look at the 3 games remaining on the schedule. You're looking at Carolina, Minnesota, Chicago. There's a realistic chance they go 0-3 in that.
Right, and we were just talking a couple weeks ago that they could go undefeated in this 3 games.
They got the hard part done, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think they were winning those games, like I said, in spite of Joe Barry, because they were forcing turnovers.
Right.
And really, you look at the Detroit game, I think they had 1 interception, but a lot of that was up front on Jared Goff fumbles, which same thing happens yesterday. If you get home maybe 1 or 2 more times, maybe Baker fumbles another one.
Right.
But it's not like you're even forcing interceptions because they're getting whatever they want, and it's whether it's a lack of communication, which is what Matt LaFleur said, or if it's I'm not saying at this point in the season it should be that the scheme's too hard, because that should be the case. But if you're getting to a point where it's a combination of scheme and communication, and you're not being able to even execute on day one install stuff, which is what LaFleur said today, unless there's not a clear-cut, guy that you feel that can competently call a defense for the last 3 games, why is this guy still here?
Right.
I mean, the Eagles, yeah, they're playing Seattle tonight without Geno, but they're holding Seattle to 3 points so far at the start of the second half.
Right.
They fired their defensive coordinator because it wasn't working. That's what you can say what you will about loyalty. You can say what you will about whatever it is. But at some point, you just have to make decisions to actually try to, if your goal is to make the playoffs or to truthfully win games. I think the biggest concern for LaFleur is he's kind of worried that people are going to worry about him as a head coach because he fired 2 defensive coordinators. I mean, he did inherit one, so it's not really, I don't think it's really even a fair comparison the way it is, but.
No, not at all.
You have to worry about keeping your job and winning games. You win games with the new defensive coordinator, all is forgiven for firing one.
Right, exactly.
I mean, even offensively, the Bills fire their offensive coordinator a couple weeks back, and you get a whole new life, a whole new look at things.
Right, exactly.
And they're talked about as, they go beat the doors off, or, they squeak by Kansas City, they beat the doors off Dallas yesterday. And it's like, hey, things are working again.
So it just gives the team so much more motivation, everything to go out and play for this new guy that wouldn't get a chance normally to be your defensive coordinator, and just go out and have fun with it, play like your kid again.
I'm gonna say, because the name that I kind of thought of yesterday, because again I had that question asked me on Twitter. But I'm saying in terms of like an in-house, because you're going to only get an in-house guy for interim.
Right.
But if you're looking for a guy like an interim, Greg Williams is the passing game coordinator, which I believe he's also the D-back coach. That's where you really need to spark the most, I feel like. I mean, you kind of have, your talent better than anybody else. If your pass rush is doing what they need to do, which I would say as a whole yesterday that they were getting hurries.
Right.
They didn't against the Giants, but that was mostly scheme. But if you're getting guys up front getting hurries, why not get that passing game coordinator who knows these players in and out better than the defensive coordinator, the head coach, whatever, and put them in positions to make plays for you? Because that's a group that probably has let's say what it is. So you have Jair Alexander, who's probably one of the loudest guys on the team, who is the energy of that defense. And when Jair's healthy, which, I'm going to say full stop, I don't think he's faking this injury or anything like that because of selfish reasons. I think he's truthfully that the Packers, and I think Matt LaFleur said it today, that they just underestimated the injury.
Right.
And he was trying to play through it and just wasn't able to pass game day tests.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's practicing, but he's playing through stuff he probably shouldn't.
Yeah. Because
he wants to be out there, and it ends up being a detriment to his own body.
Yeah.
But with that in mind, if that's the case, I mean, you get a fired up Jair Alexander for 3 games. That's a dangerous defense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you kind of start wondering like what happens if they still have Rasul Douglas, because how good of a year he's having in Buffalo. But you really can't go back and change that. It made sense at the time,
right?
But you kind of look at that as an option.
Would it be that much of a difference? You don't know. It's that veteran presence guy, but it's also if Jair plays these games, I think these games go a little bit different too.
Oh, absolutely.
So you look at it that way.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
And I think the guy that's struggling the most this year is Devondre Campbell.
I saw there's a lot of hate on Devondre Campbell yesterday. I'm going to add, he was put in a shit position a lot yesterday.
Oh, right.
And he's he's probably a step slower than he was last year, a half step slower than he was last year and the year before that. But when you're put in positions basically to fit, Devondre Camp, there's not a middle linebacker in the world that's going to match up with Chris Godwin. Like, that's just the reality of the situation. I mean, yeah, he almost had a pick yesterday.
Should have had a pick.
Should have had a pick yesterday, but that's not a matchup for success.
No.
Like, we're talking about a defensive coordinator who has schemed Preston Smith be covering Devontae Adams. And, that's just one that I can think of. I mean, jokes aside, because, he let the completion, and he did have a pass breakup against some other high-profile receiver. But when that's part of your scheme where you're putting Preston Smith into coverage or Devondre Campbell against one of the faster receivers in the game and, letting Mike Evans get behind you, you're not going to win games.
No.
And that's not the player's fault.
No. It's just a struggle.
But
and we just need a change.
We do. So, Sean, with that in mind, let's wrap this bad boy up. Packers, Panthers, I don't believe the line is out for that game. Let me just double check. I gotta imagine Green Bay is going to be favored just because of how, as a whole, bad the Panthers are. But as of right now, actually that line is out. So Packers are by 4.5 right now. Going into Carolina on Christmas Eve. Noon game Christmas Eve. What are you thinking?
I think they got to get a win here.
I do have to agree. I think they do get the job done.
I don't think it, but
what'd you say?
I don't think it's pretty, but I think
100% agree. I was literally just about to say it's going to be ugly. I just have a feeling unless this team is playing with some hatred, some spite, I fully expect that to be the case where it's going to be ugly at times. Bryce Young's going to look probably way too good.
Yeah.
Because for whatever reason, any sort of mobile quarterback just happens to feast on Green Bay. Even if they're not.
They've been feasting on Green Bay.
Yeah, pretty much. We turn immobile quarterbacks mobile.
Right.
But like I said, I think that's where we're kind of at with this season, and I think the offense very realistically could play very well again. I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility.
I don't think, like we talked about, I don't think the offense is the issue. I mean, it was at the beginning of the season.
Sure.
But now I don't think the offense is the issue. I think the team is better built for playing with a little bit of a lead.
Oh, absolutely.
Rather than playing from behind. But
well, and just real quick on that, because this is something that I didn't really even think about until you just said it, so I'm going to give you credit for this. Does that make you kind of think of why the Packers, the last few weeks they've been starting with the ball, and yeah, it didn't really work out against the Giants. They did go down the field, but they ended up not being able to punch it in. But does that kind of make you...
Right.
What's that?
They go down the field for the Bucs for the first drive too?
Yeah. They ended up going for it on fourth down, missed it, got the strip sack and score.
Right.
So, I mean, all intents and purposes, they score on the first drive, even though they didn't technically. But with that in mind, I mean, are you a little surprised that they didn't go that route yesterday when, the defense can't stop anybody, but at least you're playing tied with a position to go up early? Or do they really truly value the opportunity to possibly double up at the end of a half, which isn't even guaranteed?
I feel like it was nice to see them go forward on fourth there to start.
Oh, absolutely. I don't hate that decision at all.
I mean, because what do they got to lose at this point, really?
Right.
So
no, that's the decision to go for it's not the problem. I'm asking if you're puzzled by, they win the toss and elected to defer yesterday. They did win the toss yesterday. Are you, given the success they've had early in games and trying to play with the lead early?
Yeah, I could take it early, but I don't know. It's one of those things where I feel like if we would have started with the ball, would we have done stuff different? I feel like Matt LaFleur's first 15 plays that they script all the time. I feel like those first 15 plays are always good.
Sure.
But I don't know. I don't think it really changes the game much. Kind of thing.
I gotcha.
Because once again, the defense actually has to stop the other team.
Yeah, and that's few and far between at this point.
Because what did they put up? 24 in the second half? The Bucs?
13, 27, 14. No.
24. 30.
Yeah, you're right. My math was off.
You went to Gillette. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a comm major. I got two things going against me.
You said it. I didn't.
Yeah, I know. All right, Sean, let's put a bow on this thing. Bar of the week, I kind of got one prepared. Have not been there yet, but have meant to, and I think it's a cool concept for a bar. Here in Green Bay, it's called R&D House Divided, and that is a bar. It's on University Ave in Green Bay. One of the owners is a Packers fan, one's a Bears fan. So it's like almost split, like in the middle. Like there's even like a little bridge. It has half of it's green and gold, half of it's navy and orange. But it's a sports bar with that interesting theme. Some of the reviews here, even from a couple months ago, such a hidden gem, 5-star review. Everything on the menu has been fantastic, and the friendly waitresses / bartenders just make the experience even better. Lunches serve fast, and the portions are really big, definitely worth it. Overall, 4.3 stars on Google. Trying to think, cool concept. One here visiting from Chicago. Food was typical bar food, but the service was good, and it was fast and professional and friendly. So yeah, like I said, it's a really cool concept. Haven't gotten out there, but definitely a place that I have on my list here in Green Bay to check out. With that, Sean, we just have to go through what we are rooting for, really, through the rest of the year, Christmas and New Year's aside. And I guess I'm going to ask you one, and we did our favorite memory of the year. But if you had to choose a favorite memory or two from the calendar year, what do you got for us? Loaded question, I know, but I'm gonna make you do it.
Probably getting married. I'm gonna have to go there. So that was my favorite memory of the year. Just being able to spend the day with my wife and getting to marry my wife and having all my close friends, family, all there just to support everything was the coolest experience of the year for me.
I lobbed that one up to you. I was trying to get that one in for you. Anything else beyond that?
No.
You want to mention?
No. Not yet, at least.
Fair enough. All right, and then what are you rooting for the rest of the year here, Sean?
Just rooting for Christmas. Hoping everything goes good for Christmas. That's all.
What's on your wish list, Sean? What's on the number one? What's your Christmas wish list?
Sure, I have no idea. I usually
what is Sean asking Santa for this year?
I don't know. I got nothing. A new house. There we go. Let's go. A house.
All right, that's a solid one. That's a pretty important thing. All right. What were the questions? What did I even ask you?
Your favorite memory of the year?
Oh yeah. I'm gonna say it was a pretty damn good year as a whole. I know a lot of people not being able to say the same, but I can truly say blessed to be surrounded by so many awesome people, whether it be my podcast hosts, including my fiance and my best friends. So that's great. I got to see my brothers, both my biological and my non-biological, get married this year and stand by them. So I'm going to lob that up. Pretty easy one here. I'm slam dunking that one. Adding in, getting to call a state championship game was awesome. I mean, that's one that I won't forget. Getting to cover 2 state championships, one with a paid in obligation, but one just getting to cover a state championship with my fiance for a basketball game where I converted her from not being wanting to go to can't wait till next year. So those probably the big highlights of the year. And very excited for 2024, see what that's going to bring. And from a root for the rest of the year, I'm just gonna say, I do have another high school basketball game, I think, before the end of the year. So just getting that opportunity to kind of get back in that. I had one on Friday night, which was fun. I don't know. I think I told you this. The game started off on a 21-0 run by Sevastopol. In that it was 6 minutes 21 seconds for the first point for Gibraltar, and in that 6:21, Sevastopol allowed 2 shot attempts. So it wasn't even like they were missing. They weren't even getting shots because of how good Sevastopol's defense is. So just a couple more opportunities there, and just hoping the Packers don't piss me off. Like that's where we're at right now, right? Like that's just not even nervous, just annoyed,
right,
by the possibility of how Sunday could go.
So I'm going to ask you the same question. What's on your wish list from Santa this year?
My wish list from Santa. Can I say cash? Can I just say cash?
No.
Okay. Honestly, I'm kind of hoping for some podcast stuff. Some stuff that we can set up a little bit more of a video studio in here so we can actually kind of get it to that next step. I feel so douchey saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway, so bear with me here. But on my my wish list, I kind of have one of those phone tripods that also has like the ring light. Because I think that's going to help us out a lot. I actually think that's going to, the tripod's the most important part of that. Like, I think the ring light's kind of stupid, but you can't find a phone tripod really without one nowadays. And I refuse to buy anything called the selfie stick, even if it is a tripod built into. I can't do it. So it's one or the other, and I think I'm going to pick the lesser of two evils.
There you go.
So that's what's on my wish list. I don't have a house on there. I'm really enjoying Studio 3 for Wisconsin show. Studio 1 was at Ramsey's house. Studio 2 was the old place, and now we're in Studio 3. So Studio 3 has been really good to us. So no real aspirations for anything beyond that. Just kind of hoping, it's cliche as it is, just kind of hoping for a happy, healthy New Year in Christmas and New Year, from getting to see much family, and this whole being an uncle thing, man. These kids, they grow up way too damn fast, and getting to spend some time with them at Christmas is always great. Like that's kind of where I can truthfully say, like, that's where I'm at in life right now, where it's like, yeah, like I'd rather see the kids open their shit than what I get,
Right, 100%.
But also, if people want to sponsor the podcast, by all means, take a sponsorship. So that's my other ask on my wish list. Someone to sponsor this thing. Selfishly speaking, of course. All right, that's episode 139. For Dylan, who joined us earlier, Shauna, who technically joined us earlier, Ramsey and Justin, who weren't here this week, I'm Eric, that's Sean. Episode 139 of the Bucs. We're out. See ya. Merry Christmas.